Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be installing the Big 3 wiring kit in a 2003 SVT COBRA. And we'll do the alternator as well if we have some time. This is the KJM alternator, the Titan series from Kenneth Miley. Doesn't come with a pulley. You got to get the pulley second. When you buy them, it does not come with the pulley because these are all for different setups. So if you're running a stock 4-pound lower, it's recommended to go with the 3.0 size pulley. And the stock is a 2.7, I believe. It's going to be interesting on my car because I have a 3.5 upper right now and the stock alternator. And I'm going to be upgrading this to a 3, and I'm actually going down from a 3.5 to a 3.25 on the upper. So I'm hoping I can get away with the same belt. We'll see. Another word of advice, put this on with an impact. KJM said it has to be installed with an impact or it'll always come loose. So first I'm going to tackle the whole wiring kit in the car, and then I'm going to go through the alternator. I'm going to compare it to the stock one too. I mean, this one's much heavier, it's bigger, and you're going to have to modify your bracket, your alternator bracket. When you get the kit, it comes with this is the instructions for the alternator. This is the little sheet they give you for the Big 3 wiring kit. It's pretty basic. So if you're not too good with wiring, you can search it on YouTube. Danny Johnson has a video out on it. I recommend you to watch, a couple of videos on it, because there's a couple of ways to doing it. You'll hear from some people to run this alongside your stock wiring and hook both of them up, or you'll hear it, run it along your stock wiring and hook the new one up but leave the old one off. This is going to be the 3.25 upper I'll be using. Side note, these hair rollers for getting fuzzies off your clothes, they work great. And if you got a hairy, sheddy dog like me, all I have is a white pit bull, but I mean, you pet him and his hair comes off. Let's go look at this guy right here. So it's hard because I love the dog, but I will not get any hairs in my car. My car is like mint, has no dirt in there, so I try and put on a clean shirt or try and get all the hair off before I get in. Let's pull the car. Well, here she is in all her glory. The wheels might be going soon. Not gonna say anything now, but they might be. The belt on here is pretty tight. It's a pretty tight fit. So I'm hoping I can stretch it, because I think I have like 0.05 or 0.005 of a difference. But anyways, we're going to start by disconnecting the battery, take it completely out, and then we're going to take out the battery tray. And we're just going to inspect some of the wires. I'm going to inspect how this is ran now and where the wires go and go from there. So first thing to do is disconnect the battery. So we're going to take both terminals off because I'm just taking the battery right out of the way. Someone changed these terminals, so yours might not look like this. And, they come off really easy on this car. Next, there's a battery hold down bolt right down there. And you're gonna need, I think it's an 8 or a 7. And your battery has a handle on the top. I'm sure it's good and strong, but it might not be. So I always recommend putting your hand under it when you take it out of here, because it could drop on any portion of your car and then you're going to be pretty pissed. So now I'm going to take this out of the way. It's just a bolt here, here, and here. Just a disclaimer, if you don't know what you're doing with wiring, use KMJ's instructions and just run these wires right on top of your other wires. Just do it like the instructions tell you to. Alternator to a fuse, to your, that's your, I'll show you where. That's right here. You slide this piece up. There's a nut here. And that's what gives all your current there. That's why this positive cable, this has a positive cable running right to here, and it's got one going down below. I believe it goes to the alternator. I'm gonna have to get under the car, jack it up. So, this is basically an upgrade. It's an aftermarket upgrade. I can actually leave this in place. This is instead, you can either use a breaker or you can use a fuse. A fuse is just gonna break and you're gonna have to replace it, and this you're just gonna push the button down if it ever trips. So I might leave this instead because it's a good setup. And the wire's already up, and the wire's already been upgraded in this car from here and then to the here. So I'm debating what I want to do. So if you gently pry in here, you can take this thing right off. That's what it looks like when it's off. It's just much easier to work with. Under the car now, so that line goes to the alternator. Trying to find the factory line. I think it's bolted to the same thing. I think I'm just gonna do the alternator as well. I'm taking off this hood insulation while I'm here. Just gonna put it somewhere. Looks so empty now. But the engine should breathe better. Should get more air in there. A little bit. Just gotta remember to unbolt this ground wire. It's a ground wire on this thing. It makes sense just to do the alternator now. So I'm just gonna do it now. So I'm sorry for the long video. I'll try to make it thorough. I'm gonna break these bolts loose now because I'm replacing that. Then I'll take the belt off and then I'll loosen some alternator bolts. So that's on. Next we're gonna have to take this 15mm out. And then the other one is under the car. So this one you can access with the panel and get up in there. See if you can see it. There it is. It's not a 15mm bolt. It's a 14 or 13, I'll tell you. It's a 13 mil, guys. So that bolt I took out completely. I left the top one in with a couple threads because we're gonna take the bolt off of the alternator, which is, you can access it right. It's right there. I think it's a 10 mil. You'll see what I mean when you do. So this is how these guys had this one. They had the upgraded wire taped to the factory wire, and both of them tied in together. Now at this point we got to get the alternator bracket off, which is this piece. We're going to follow it down. There's a 10mm bolt here. You're going to take that out first. So remove this bolt all the way. Now, top side, remove this bolt. Just pull it right out. And the alternator already just dropped out of the way. So I'm going to go down and pull it out. Not sure how I'm going to film this and do it at the same time, but if you get under your car, there's a flap here. You're going to move that aside and you can pull it right out this hole. I promise you, you can. Forgot, you're gonna have to loosen this bolt too. Boop, boop, boop. Right down there. you loosen it, and that's the way the bracket kind of pivots and you get the alternator right out. Okay, so we're actually taking off the upper bracket to modify, the one that's up top. So you got like some bolts. But when you take out the alternator, obviously you can still loosen the bottom one. That's the one I always loosen so I can swing it out of the way. So lunch break's over. Here's the comparison. I mean, one is just massive, and then the other one's just this dinky thing. It's such a big difference. Also, the weight of this thing, way heavy. So, we're pulling the upper bracket right here. So I think there's 4 10mm bolts. You can see a couple there. And just pull it out. So I actually had to use a cheater bar on this, because you got to get a little ratchet like this and get it in there. And they were on pretty tight. So the other two are right there. Spot. So I got 2 extensions on here, and I'm getting it like that. Here it is, folks. I'm gonna be grinding right there. It's a good time to clean it while it's out too. But as you can see on here, you're taking material off right there. Right there. Right there. Got it? Basically, you want the gap right here in between the alternator and this piece to be smaller. So you gotta take out material right here on that hump. So I cleaned up the piece and I shaved some off. I kind of drew a line where I was marking it, but I didn't go as far as that. I'm gonna see if this is enough. So it's actually more of this section right here. Here's the picture. Here's mine. So now reverse order, I'm just gonna put this piece back in with the 4 10mm bolts. So the bracket's in place now. There. I'm gonna keep the other bottom bracket loose. That's just how I do it, because this one's big, so I'm hoping it goes in all right. We're just gonna put it in the same way right through the flap. So that wasn't the funnest thing in the world. This alternator is huge, and you're gonna have to wrestle with it a little to get it in. You're gonna have to try and push that bottom bracket far away. Look at it. I gotta go fix it. Mine's pushed all the way past the mount. It's tweaked, because that was the only way. I'm gonna do what I can while it's light out. All right, so the bracket's in. So now it's time to do the wiring. I got a ground wire going from here. That goes to here. And then we got your ground wire, your main ground wire here. I'm gonna follow where that goes. That's the lower alternator bolt. I'm leaving it out for now just in case. So it's a new day. I don't know what I left up on yesterday. So it's a new day. I don't know where I left off yesterday. But today, because I just wanted to figure out, I needed a day to figure out what I was going to do with the wiring. Since it's already been upgraded from the alternator to here. You know, I mean, that's a 4-gauge wire, I believe. I'm gonna take it all out, redo the connections, and just check it. If it's not, I'll redo it. But I'm gonna start off doing grounds first. I'm replacing this ground. It's a pretty good size gauge, but I'm just gonna put the new one. I like the new one. And then I probably add the other one to here and run it to my engine. There is an intermediate ground down there. It's like facing upwards here, and it goes that way near the oil filter. It's a very skinny ground, so I want to redo that one too if I can. But it's early. Right now I'm just gonna take this one off, bring it inside, and do it in. And having more grounds is not a bad thing, you know. They used to sell grounding kits for motors, you know, you ground it more and it was supposed to make it more efficient. But I'm just gonna share some information about the power wire, because I know a lot of instructions say to run this right on top of the old one. So you run them both together on the alternator. But I was talking to my buddy Nate, who's an electrician, and he says you shouldn't do that. He's like, it'll probably work that way, but it's not the best way. And I'll show you what he said. So I'll read you what he wrote. See, that's how mine was, one on top of the other. That's because people are stupid. Electricity isn't like water. If you have a 1-inch pipe and a 2-inch pipe tied together in a manifold running parallel, the water will just run through them. The water will try to flow evenly until the 1-inch will reach its max capabilities. Then the rest will just go through the 2-inch. With electricity, the electricity doesn't care if one wire is a 4 gauge and the other a 12 gauge. It will split the current between the two wires. The 4 gauge can handle the load, but the 12 gauge can't, so it will heat up and eventually burn up. Now, it's not like the alternator is always putting out 200 amps, so by leaving the two different sized wires hooked up, you'll most likely be fine. However, that doesn't mean it's right. That's why when you run parallel conductors, they must be the same size. So just remember that. Check out this J2 Fab intercooler tank in the trunk. Just check out the flow. Crazy. So I'm just gonna measure this one and cut it the same size. I've been doing this a while. I didn't even lose one strand of hair doing that. Wire, not hair. Alright. So that one's in, it's bolted in. It's over here, ready to go in. I think I'm gonna keep the old one and run another big one down and try and bolt it to the block. We'll see. And the reds, I would like to redo them so they're all the heavy gauge wire. I'd like to redo these. But as you can see, like, this is your factory alternator one, and it has the green and yellow wire in with it, and it splits off and goes to these two. So you don't really want to touch that one. You just want the current to go into it. So the new wire, whether it be this old one that someone already did or if I redo it, the big wire that connects here gives everything that's attached to here power. So it's going to give this wire power if it has to go anywhere else, which it does. So you want to tape this off. I wouldn't cut it off because it's a nice factory end down there. Tape it off well under the car. You don't want to run two positives. But leave it connected up here. And we're back. Had to run to my kids' luncheon at school. Not looking too good. Gotta get this done. So, next one we're doing is gonna be the battery to mount. It's like the next one we're gonna be doing is the battery to like frame mount, motor mount, whatever. And then if we have time, we're gonna do frame to motor. So I just went under there. Currently, this wire, the way it's routed, is not gonna reach where it needs to go on the alternator anyways. So I'm debating what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start taking this apart, taking all that off so I can redo it. And this, I'm either gonna reroute this way, right over the, drop it down the back here, or I'm gonna change the wire. So I pulled this thing up here, take the bolt off. Basically what I'm doing with this, these covers slide off. I'm just gonna check and make sure it's a good amount of gauge. These are really stiff to work with, so I might use the other red wire, I'm not sure. 'Cause I still wanna upgrade this. I'm gonna do that. So that's not a bad spot for my circuit breaker or your fuse, whatever you choose to run. So I'm just gonna copy the length of the wire to here. I'm gonna use the new stuff, and then I'm gonna remeasure what I need for it to pretty much loop around and come down. So here's the old one. Crimp job's kind of lame on it. This is mine. Well, these are the ones I'm making. I'm just gonna put heat shrink over it now. So those are the replacement ones for the fuse. Now I'm gonna go out and measure the last one that I want to replace. So this is the other one I'm replacing. There's not gonna be any tapering down. So all the power wires are done. Go put those in. So I think I about reached my max on all the things I got going there. Alright, so it's back to normal. Yeah, this is my fuel pump, feed. I was gonna tie this there, but I'm like, nah, I'll leave that there. So if you're gonna do it my way, move the boot back on the stock one, wrap this up in electrical tape good, and pull this back. You can even wrap it again if you want. As you can see, I double taped mine. So the positive side is all set, ready for the battery. Now we're gonna address this side. Got this wire done. And we're gonna see if we can do a couple others. All right, the last ground is gonna be going right up there. 10mm bolt. You don't need a special crimping tool to do this, just a pair of dikes. And I do 2 crimps, one at the bottom to make sure it pushes the wires up, then another one right here. So I made sure the area is clean and I mounted both of them. So this doesn't fit on the alternator. It's too fat to fit in between the 2 plastic pieces. I'm gonna try and trim a little off the sides. I would tighten that on the alternator before it goes in, just because everything's a tight fit with this. And just in case, I put a little tape around mine and over the nut. It's not hitting anything, but just in case. So reverse order, I'm just kind of putting everything back together. Well guys, we're all done. New wires, new alternator, new pulley, same belt. So I'll get you one final cold start. So it's got a new pulley, 3.25, so I'm assuming it's running a little leaner all the time now. Come on, battery voltage. Woo! 14.5. Way more than the other one. Alright guys, that's all for the KMJ install. It works so far. Car's getting dyno tuned in a week, less than a week. Stay tuned.